Hello friends, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to this video, which is part 2 of my sentimental slow stitched sachets. That is not easy to say. I had decided when I got around the 45-minute mark that y'all needed a little break and that a second video was in order. So in this video, I will finish up making the sachet, stuff it with some lavender, and you can catch the cliffhanger ending to this video. So I hope you enjoy. Go get yourself coffee, tea, whatever, and maybe your own little project, and join me as we finish it off. So it is the next day. I realized I needed to leave to go photograph kids with Santa, so it is the next day, and I went ahead and made the 3 Suffolk puffs, since I already did that in this video. And I'm trying to think about what I want in the center of them. For this one, I just added some pink French knots, which I really like. And I could do that again, but I'm thinking I might want something different. So one idea I had was to just make a little knot in a scrap of fabric. This is a pink scrap from the same kind of fabric. I think that might look really sweet. Just a little dot to bring it together. And I have lots of scraps. I could do a yellow one on the pink flower. You know, the thing about fabric is there's so many different things that you can do with your tiny scraps. You know, you can make a collage, you can tie them and, you know, make a little accessory kind of extra. How cute is that little bow? What if I put that in the middle of the pink one? I think that's really cute. Let's see. We've got pink on this one. We've got yellow there. Maybe a little bit of, I could do pink again, or I could do a little bit of green. I think that would work. Let's see. Well, I don't have a strip, but I can cut a little bit off of the edge of this one. I know that I'm not needing the whole thing, but it's hard to tie it when it's really, really short. So I'm just gonna cut a little bit longer than I need here, knowing that the rest will go in my orts jar and I will probably use it for stuffing or who knows what. Let's see, now that's a little too close to the edge. What do you guys put at the center of your Suffolk puffs? Now, if you do it I think there's like a more official, precise way to do these. I don't know, is there? I mean, I just cut a circle and then go around it. You can turn over the edges, and I think that gives you a slightly neater, a neater little puff where maybe you don't need to put something in the middle. But I just think that it adds a lot to have a layer there. Like, Kate, can you tie a knot? Yes, I can. Maybe. The end does not want to come through. That's so funny. So last night's Santa photos went very well. My friend owns a cold brew coffee place, and one of our friends dressed up as Santa, and 10 minutes before the event was to start, we already had a whole room full of babies and parents, and it was so cute. So I photographed those. It was nowhere near the 140 children that I photographed on Saturday with Santa. That was a lot, but still also so cute. This was, I don't know, it wasn't as many, maybe 20 families or 15 or something. So it was more manageable, but we had a lot of fun. And then, yep, already got those edited, uploaded. So all the families will have their Santa photos, and we are good to go. And that was the last of the Santa photos for this year, which always feels good. And really, aside from having some Now, there's always something to do, right? I have a deadline for one of my magazines that I work for on Friday. And then I own another magazine, so that one I'm just going to have to continually be working on. But most of my work I can get finished by Friday. And then it's vacation time. Which, if any of you are small business owners, you know that, there's always still more stuff to do. But you have to be very proactive about taking time off when you work for yourself, because it literally never ends. There's nobody saying, oh, you're done, go home. You have to tell yourself, go home. Or you are already home, but you know what I mean. So my mom and dad arrive from California tomorrow night, and I am so excited. And I have been working very hard to get everything finished so that I can just have time with them. And that is going to be fun. So what are we going to do? Well, as I mentioned, we're mostly going to just chill. But I have already planned on Saturday to go with my mom and do some vintage fabric shopping. We have never done this before. And because I am recently into this whole hobby, I've been doing it. I've seen her since I started embroidering, but not really since I started collecting vintage fabrics in earnest. So she and I are going to go over to one of my favorite little towns because there's an antique mall there that I have never been to. Is there anything more exciting? So let's see. Am I going to want that one there? Yeah, I think so. The multicolored one in the middle, and then my kind of more solid ones on the sides. That'll look really good. So I'm going to go ahead and secure this one down. Just since I've already got the thread coming off the back, I might as well while I'm here. Now, is this little guy perfect? No, it's not at all. But, one of the things I've learned to embrace about not only slow stitch, but just these kind of projects is that it doesn't have to be perfect, for one thing. And secondly, the little things that are kind of unique are what make it fun and handmade. When I'm out there in a vintage or in a thrift store, or over at an antique mall, and I see something that is not the same pattern that I have seen before, I'm sure you do too. You get really excited because it's something different. I found a tea towel, and I'm going to show it to you later. It had the most unique little design on it. It's like a vanity table with a blue cover on it. And the vanity is applique. Did I just run that around? I hate it when I do that. All right, pull that one out. But anyway, so I bought this little tea towel for not much. I think it was maybe $2, which, some people buy in bulk and they get insane deals, but a lot of us are out there trying to find things for, and the vendors are selling them for a price that makes it worthwhile for them. So I see things marked for $8 or $12, and I just can't generally buy that. But this one vendor near my house, or like 20 minutes away, she has a booth at an antique. Well, it's all kinds of stuff. It's not an antique mall. It's more like where there's a zillion different vendors selling everything handmade, or, this is hard to get through. There we go. It's because I'm trying to put it through the knot. I'm going to stop doing that because that makes it really hard to put on. But anyway, so it's called Alyssa's in Pace, which is a city near where I live, or a town. And Alyssa's has so many vendors. It's huge. And one of the ladies there that I discovered the last time I was there has tons of antique linens, lots of napkins, hankies, and tea towels, which are generally what I'm looking for. Occasionally, I think I got one runner from her once. But anyway, she marks with orange tags if it's soiled, or if it has stains. holes, that kind of thing. And then she marks them down a lot because most people don't want them because they are using these for guest towels, or, they're actually using them for whatever they are designed for. But obviously I am coming in saying I might do that, or I might, as Kate in the Nest would say, harvest the various parts of it for some other project. And so I don't mind if something has stains. In fact, I almost prefer it because I know I'm going to get a really good deal. So I found this. So anyway, I went to her booth yesterday while I was over in that part of town. And, she had some lovely little things marked for not much. And that was a great find. So anyway, I will show you this tea towel. It's just so unique and fun. And like putting a button here, I love putting a button there, but that's kind of what we do, put a button there. Or maybe you put a little fabric. Like I could make a little pom-pom or something out of fabric. Full disclosure, I actually went and I have this kit of their clothespins or pipe cleaners and pom-poms to make Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And I actually pulled out one and I'm like, oh no, yeah, that's a 0. Yes, it's really, really bright. I wasn't sure. Now, could I use a pom-pom in another project? Oh yes. And I am sure I probably will at some point, because if I were doing a really textural, fun piece and I had some Suffolk puffs in bright colors, a pom-pom would make such a fun center for a flower. But, in my mind's eye, I thought I had a yellow one. But even so, they're too big, even the little guys. And I tried cutting it up. You know what happens when you cut a pom-pom? It explodes. It becomes a whole bunch of puff. So that is not a technique I would recommend. All right. Securing my little Suffolk puffs. Now, I could have sewed this down first. I did last time, but this time I'm just going to add it at the end, and we'll put it under my little flower. Look how cute that is. I love the little bow. I just think that's so fun. This is good. This is good for my heart. So in a little while, I'm actually leaving to go to the funeral of a dear man from our church who was an elder, and he and his wife are two of my favorite people. She was immediately drawn to us. My husband's the pastor of our church. I don't know if you knew that, but anyway, so when we first came here and met everyone, she was the first one to say, when do you start? And I knew from that moment, these were our people. So she and her husband have always meant a lot to us. And I will forever see him with a twinkle in his eye and a big smile. And my husband could always tease him from the pulpit in his sermons because he has the best sense of humor. And he was one of our older people, and they just had such a great relationship. So I am headed to his memorial today, and it being nearly Christmas, that's hard. But we will gather together and we will celebrate his life. And our small group of people I'm making a dozen sandwiches in a minute. We'll feed our people and we will be together, and that will be good. And we will look forward with hope. So I needed a minute before that to just be. And so I thought, you know what? I'm just going to go upstairs and work on Christy's present and get these little guys finished. That's probably all I'll have time for this morning, but I'll get it finished this afternoon. I think one of the things I love the most about this particular hobby is that you can just do it for a minute or two and get something done, and it feels good, especially if you're having a hard day. You could always just come and do a couple little things, and it feels good. It feels good to get a little something done, and it just gives your heart a place to rest for a moment and create something beautiful. I You know, there's something about creating beauty that is good for us. I think we were meant to have those moments in life. All right, so I'm going to take my little green thread and attach this. I'm not attaching these insanely securely because it's a sachet. You know, it's not exactly being used as a football. It's not going in a purse. You know, it's just going to sit in a drawer. So, you know, if it were obviously, if it were something that we're going to go around, you would need to tack this down more and that kind of stuff. But I just need it to live on the side of this little sachet where it will live a pampered life. So I don't have to worry about it. I'm just going to knot it off. And there we go. All right, so our 3 little Suffolk puffs are in their place. And now I'm just going to put their little bed right in there. And I like how that turned out. I don't mind that it's not as big as the other one because I think it's cute. I am going to still attach it with some French knots. I love French knots. I have mentioned this before. I don't know why they are so satisfying, but they just are. All right, so I probably, I was going to say, I probably am going to wish I had a longer thread. But as we discovered recently, I generally have too much thread and then it gets all messed up. So we'll see. So I'm just going to draw that down. And this pattern has some little dots on it, which is what inspired the French dots to begin with. I think on the other one, I was going every 4th one. I think I'm still going to do that, even though we're seeing fewer of them. I think that looks cute to have just a few little French knots. And again, you know, if this were going to be in a purse or something like that, I would probably do a back stitch or a running stitch, even in white or something, to really secure that. But it is living a life probably in a drawer or on a dresser or something. So now you can't really see, but I am putting a little French knot under here. And again, they're just securing this piece. One more loop. Come back. Okay. It's securing this little piece of fabric to the back. We'll see if that one comes out. Oh, I think, look at that. It's a happy little French knot. You know, that's the thing, because at least the way I do French knots, it looks like it is never going to come out the way it should, and yet it does. They're like a little magic, and I love that. All right, so, and it's not right on the little dot, but I'm going to put one there because I do want it to secure the end of this piece. But, you know, I'm not worrying about it being at the very end because, again, it'll stay. So are you a first thing in the morning sewer or a when all the things are done sewer? Or are you like me where you catch it absolutely as you can? I have so many little project bags I've made for myself, and they all have a whole bunch of different projects in them in case I have a minute. And that is fun. As I said, I'm going to wish I had more thread, but that's all right. We'll finish a couple more French knots. Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to end off this one and then get myself a little more thread to finish these French knots. French knots are one of those things where you really do wish you had more thread. And so I find that allowing myself, you know, a little bit longer piece of thread, even if I'm only doing a few of them, it'll just be less frustrating. And who needs frustration when it comes to sewing? This is something I'm doing just because it's fun. You know, and most things in life that are worth doing involve some frustration. I'm not saying that. Yeah, that's true. Hopefully the frustration is during the process and not when you get to the end, because if you have the frustration when you get to the end, it means something probably did not go right. That's more like my experience with baking. Not a baker. Well, that is just a funny looking little knot. Okay, so if that ever happens to you and you're like, my French knot is a little wild and woolly, I just like to come up in the middle and gather up some of those threads and come back down in. And it just tightens it up a little bit. K3N always says that there's very few things that can't be improved with more stitches. And I agree, because, you know, if something looks weird, you can always just add some more to it. You know, occasionally you have to unpick it because it's just in the wrong place or something happened, and that's fine. But, you know, most of the time, if you just add a couple more stitches, or you secure it a little bit differently, or you put another thing over it, you know, then you don't actually have to unpick anything. You just keep going. It's one of the ways that sewing is not like some of the other arts that I enjoy doing. Because if you just keep going with painting, now sometimes you can add more layers, but there are plenty of projects that you just, I did a little more on, and then it's all messed up. It was good. And then you just keep going, and now it's not good. You know, now some of you who are true artists, I'm sure you have a way to keep going and then it gets even better. But all right, little French knots. How cute. I really like how that turned out. All right, so I'm going to end off my little garden panel here. Oof. When I tie these off, I just try to go under the thread so that I'm not creating another stitch on there, and then I just go through and it gives me a little knot. Some people don't like knots on the back of their things, and that is fine. If you have a way to do this without knotting it, hey, that's great. All right, now let's see, what's the next thing? So you'll notice here I stitched this on another piece of fabric, just a little scrap. You know, why would I not do that? That way I don't actually have to stitch onto here. And that way, because I'm still practicing doing my letters, and I really liked how it turned out. But of course, I could also just stitch right on here. Which do I want to do? I wanted to add some decorative stitching there, which I did. I think I'm actually going to put the initials for this one on the piece itself. I do like that green, so I think I will use my green thread for this. And then, I don't know, maybe I'll put, you know, I could stitch around it still if I wanted to. Let's see what it looks like. Now, I am not writing this out. A lot of, you know, obviously most people, I think, write down things, and that is fine. I'm just stitching it freehand, kind of like as if I was writing it, because I do see this as just writing with thread. But, you know, could it turn out really wonky? You know, but I'm not really that worried about it. All right, so what I did last time was for this one, they're just tiny little, I think they're back stitches, yeah. So I am just coming in here with a series of little stitches. And again, you know, whatever kind of lettering, I'm very curious. What are your favorite stitches for lettering? I've learned to do some chain stitching to do lettering. I've learned to do back stitch. Also stem stitch, or I forget if that's what it's called. When you do, if I did this and then I came back around it with, you know, and just like ran my thread and caught it through each one of those, that's pretty. The only thing is that I find it gives sometimes more of a line than what I was looking for. With this, I kind of like that it looks a little bit knotted. And with the K, I did like how I made a little curly Q on the end before, so that's what I'm going to do this time. Just kind of looking at it in the, you know, the scope of it. Yeah, it's not large, but I'm okay with that. I probably could have made this letter bigger, but I like it. My sisters and I all have names starting with K, which was challenging for my mom when trying to call all of us. And now my children do not have names that start with the same letter, and it's still hard, so maybe it doesn't matter. All right, I do when I have a knot on the back. I don't think it's going to come free. It's back here, so I'll just leave it. Okay, now I'm going to bring my thread up this way so that it doesn't look funny behind the, behind the fabric here. Start again here. Bring a K up. So anyway, I was asking you, are there some stitches you've found that you really enjoy for writing? I think as long as the stitches are small, it's there, you can make them go whatever direction you want. And since these are just initials, and obviously she knows her initials, if they, are a little more artistic, but, less totally legible, it doesn't matter as much as it would if I were writing, some poetry or a longer quote. Then you would, you might want something blockier or something that you can read more easily. But I would love to hear from you what some of your favorite stitches are for doing writing, or the kind of lettering. All right, there's my K. And then I'm just going to start it, the next letter right down here so that it, I don't need to stop the thread and start again. And I think I'll just do a plain, I'll just do a plain post of the R, kind of straight. Just looking at it. And I don't want it to pucker up too much, although because I am putting some stuffing in it as well as the little lavender sachet, it can be a little puckery. It won't matter. Isn't fabric wonderfully flexible? It's one of the many things I enjoy about it. So this morning I made a little bit more of a movement toward actually putting these videos up on YouTube. We're getting closer. By the time you see this, obviously, they will be on there. But I'm right now at the stage where I'm still working on it and thinking about it. Again, my whole motivation is just to be involved in the community, and it has been such a blessing to me that I want to be part of it. I love that there are so many people out there who are just inspiring other people to be creative, and who are encouraging other, especially women, to take the time to make something beautiful and to use their skills. And I just want to be part of that. So I think I probably will be. But not creating another, another job. I'm curious, what do you do with all the stuff you make? Do you just have a big inventory and you give it away as gifts, or do you have a shop? I'm realizing that I have two hobbies when it comes to this. One is making things, which I love. The other is collecting all of this fabulous stuff. And I'm considering, maybe having a little shop where I could sell kits, because I have a lot of stuff already, and I do not want to stop gathering it. I want to keep going. So I'm thinking, well, maybe I should turn some of it into kits for other people. And obviously I need to cover the cost of that so I can go get more stuff. But anyway, how many of you guys have have a little shop. Feel free to put your shop in the comments below. I don't mind that at all, because I'm curious who's doing that. All right, KR, and then my little sister, her last name, her married last name starts with an S, so I'm going to put that in. When you're an entrepreneur, kind of whenever you have something you enjoy doing, you automatically start thinking about how you can make a business out of it. And I just, I hesitate because this is such a fun hobby, and I don't want to add on the stress of running a business, which I know can come because that's what I do, But I also know that it's its own joy to have little businesses. It's fun. And there's something about creating something where there wasn't something, and putting your own little mark on it. Let's see. I'll come around here. That's really exciting. One YouTuber that I enjoy listening to is over at the Fabled Thread. Her name is Epi. And she often talks about the business of sewing and of creating, and I have really enjoyed her thoughts on that because I really relate to it. There is something about running a business and being an entrepreneur that is a very unique calling, and sometimes it feels like everybody and their 5 friends are starting their own businesses and are entrepreneurs, which is fine. I think about the market stalls that you would have in the medieval world and how you would go out and you would sell your goods. And when I was in Uganda a couple years ago, it seems like every single person has a market stand in front of his or her house, and they are just selling, whether it's their produce or their chickens or something they make, they're selling it out in front of their house. And I felt such a kinship with everybody because, everybody's an entrepreneur in a sense. It's just selling things. I like that. That's cute. Okay. Now, is it perfectly straight and proportioned? I don't know. Do I care? No, because it's beautiful and it's her initials. And it's different. Here's hers and here's my other sister's. They're each unique, and I like that. I think maybe just because I have a little extra space here, I think I'll add just a little bouquet of flowers to the end of her name. Or maybe just one flower. Let's see. Maybe, do I want it to have a few flowers? Let's try one, and then we'll go from there. So I'm curious, how many of you follow some YouTubers and do their projects with them? I have a bunch that I follow, and, I just kind of do the projects as I have time. I think some of them are more focused, like the ones that involve a journal or a panel, and I didn't do any of those last year. I followed K3N, and a lot of people I think were doing, let's see, I want some leaves. They were doing more of a panel, but I just did them as individual projects, and that worked for me with life and how I was learning to do all this. Let's see. I think just those will be the little leaves. I could do a little, like a granito stitch would look cute there, but I kind of like the simplicity of that. And then I think I'm just going to do a little French knot in pink, and that will look cute. And it just gives a little detail to that since it's a little bit simpler. Let's see. I don't want just 2 strands. My French knots, I want at least probably 4 strands or 6 because I like them to be a little larger and loopier generally. Obviously, sometimes you might want something that's a little bit smaller, and that works. But for what I'm doing here, I think a little French knot flower at the end of that. Let's see if one is enough. What do you think? Will one be enough? Do a 3. All right, what do we think? Yeah, I think that's really sweet. I am actually going to run, well, let's see. I'm going to run a little stitch up just to secure some of these threads. Oh, that was a mistake, because now it's going to pull that knot through. Never mind. Here, I'm just going to take my needle out. Easier said than done, huh? All right. Just going to attempt to pull that back through. You know, and whatever I end up with is what I have. Let's see. Ooh, might be stuck. I think I've knotted that in place really well. Okay, so yeah, sometimes we make a mistake. Okay, so I'm just going to cut this off because I have so much thread going on back here that it's not going to be a problem to secure it. Just going to cut my needle off. The mistake I made there was that I came right back up through the center and it took the knot from behind and it got stuck. So that's okay. And I could have left it alone, but it was looking a little bit... Wow, that's an explosion of thread on the back. Thankfully, it's going to be in the middle of my project and not very accessible, so that's okay. All right, nice little knot. Now I can trim off all these pieces. These will go in my extra threads to become who knows what. It's like a little bird back here. I will trim you off just so you don't make a weird... Let's see. Well, it's kind of pretty in itself, but it is a little bit funny looking. So I'm going to just, I think I'm just going to stitch those little threads down. Now, obviously, I could just take it off, but you know, I'd rather have something different and unique on there, so I'm going to see what I can make it into. I'm curious how many of you came to this from a very, either sewing where you were always following a pattern, or something a lot more detailed, or maybe detailed is the wrong word. The word that comes to mind is prescriptive, but that's not, I don't know, that just doesn't seem like the right word for this. But, you know, where you were kind of told what to do. And how many of you came to this, like I did, sort of as another form of creativity, where you're not as concerned about, where it's about the process. Now, I think everybody who's involved in the slow stitching community is involved because it's the process. The process is what drew you. I like that. But I think she looks a little lonely, so I think I actually am going to add another flower on and another stem. So I was asking you before, do you just have a huge inventory of stuff at your house and then you give it away, or do you sell it, or you know, what do you do with all these things you make? I know it's not about the product. I mean, and honestly, if you're making a slow stitch journal, then you may end up with dozens of pieces and they just are in your journal, which is cool. Now, I get that sometimes it's just about making the art. And, you know, what ends up happening to it is not as much the focus. I respect that. So that might be you. So I'm interested to know if that's you, where you put things in your journal or you make a journal and, you know, each day is a different stitch and it's the process of making it that's the point for you. But as somebody who's seen the development of a whole lot of rice bags, I know that there's probably people out there also making things and giving them to friends or using them yourselves, and, you know, or perhaps selling them in a little Etsy shop or somewhere else. So I'm curious what you do. All right, one more stem. Now, I am fully aware that odd numbers are better. So we'll see. We may end up, are we going to want another stem? You know what, let's just be honest. We're going to want another stem. So I'm going to put one up the middle. I heard somebody remark the other day that the reason odd numbers are better is your brain is always trying to make pairs of things. We like pairs. We like to put things together. And so if you have 2, then the brain can stop. It already has the 2. But if you have 3, then the brain is trying to make a pair out of that 3, and it keeps going around and around, and it adds interest. So when you're creating a design, that's why doing things in odd numbers is generally going to be a more interesting design. You know, and you can have a pair of something, but I think then you might want a design element that gives you a little bit, like maybe it's a couple sitting on a bench, but there's a moon above, you know, or something like that. I'm just going to make one stem come up through the middle. Because these are very light colors, I feel like they just don't take up that much visual space, and I'm not going to add leaves to this stem. I think just having a stem going up is enough here. Does it need to be taller? Maybe just a hair. Stitches are not the same length. It's okay, because it's just drawing with thread. When you're drawing, you just sketch something and then you sketch it a little longer, and that's good. Sometimes I'll just run it through like that, and then cut it off, because being under these other stitches will probably keep it in place. But I have enough thread to make a little knot, so I'll just do that. When I'm stitching something that's really laying flat, then I will sometimes just run that stitch under some of the other stitches, and then it's fine, it's secure, and I don't need to put a knot in. All right, clearly I'm going to need a longer piece of pink thread, because that was part of my issue before. Here's one. I have little pieces of pink thread just floating around right now. Here is one that is plenty long for doing 2 more little French knots. Now, obviously, since this French knot became a little thread colony of some sort, well, you know, these other ones won't look exactly the same. Well, let's just look and see. I'll see if what I make fits. Okay. Go for the tall little flower. I'm just coming in right at the end of the stem so that there's no gap. 3 times around my needle, back down right next to it. And that's cute, but it's not big enough because of the other one. So I'm going to put a couple other French knots next to it. I just want visually to have it be balanced. And I will do 3 here, because 2, again, is not going to look quite right, I don't think. Let's see. Do one more right above it. when you're clustering things, you want to think about a triangle shape or a diamond shape. The one time that an even number can work is if you turn it into a diamond. I do that if I'm photographing a family of 4, and you know, obviously if it's a family of 4, I can't make an odd number. So if I put them either in a diagonal line or I put them in a diamond, then visually it works. I think probably the diamond because it's sort of 2 sets of 3, or it's multiple sets of 3 just going in different directions. You know, you're like this. You've really got a couple of triangles happening there. So, you know, if you have to arrange 4 or something, then putting it in a diamond that has 2 sets of 3 points, if that makes sense, that works visually. And if you're doing something close together, you know, then having a set of 3 will generally work well. One, 2, 3. My little cluster of rosebuds or whatever these are. I think that looks really sweet. That kind of became 2. Do you see how that big one merged? The 2 merged into 1 because I took that extra stitch. So I'm actually going to add 1 more here. Because, again, you know, will anyone else notice? No, but I will. So I'm going to put a little 3rd guy there because a little set of 3, even in a tiny setting, is going to look better. It's so funny how stitching, posing people in photography, all works on the same design principles. Sets of 3, sets of 3, 3. Here it doesn't matter. I'm just adding design. And then if you might recall, here we have 7 petals. And I still don't have a center. All right. I gotta make a decision on that. What do I want in the center of that flower? If I had a really cool button, that's totally what I would do. Okay, I may go and look and see if I have a really cool button. Okay, so I pulled a few little buttons. I don't have a vast button collection. I have a few buttons that I got from my mother-in-law, and I have a few buttons I've purchased. I have some cheap buttons I ordered from overseas, and I just don't love them. I don't know, so I don't use them very much. I think that could be really cute. Let's see. So we have a pink and we have a green option. The green works with this, but obviously more often you've got a pink center or really yellow, but I don't have any yellow buttons. I like that pink. So we're going to go with a pink button for the center of this little flower. You know, and again, I could make something. I could stitch some French knots in the middle. But I like this little button, kind of adds some interest there. And I'm securing it with embroidery floss. I could do button thread, of course, or sewing thread, but this is what I have, and it will work. And again, this is not a button that is going to get heavy use. This is a decorative flower center, and I'm just doing a little X in the middle. That is enough. It will keep it in its place. And that is going to finish off this part of the project. All right. So the next step in this little piece is to stitch up the side and to close it up. I'm still thinking about whether I want to be able to keep it open at all. Oh, one other thing. I'm going to sign it. Are you signing your work? You should be, because you're an artist. So the way I signed this piece was I put my initials and the date there inside the little flap. And that's what I'm going to do for this. So I'm actually going to need a little scrap of white fabric for this part because I'm going to add it inside right in there. So I'm going to cut a little piece. I'm going to stitch this and I'll be right back. All right, so I went ahead and finished stitching up my initials here on a little tiny scrap of white fabric. And now I am going to attach it to the inside of the, what will eventually be the sachet here. And just like on this one where you can open it and there's the initials, that's how I'm going to do it on this. It's a little different because I didn't stitch it together like I did on the other one. So I only have one layer of lace here that I'm working with, but I think that will work anyhow. Let's see. That's the one with the knot in it. Sorry, I'm just getting sorted here. Okay, so just kind of fold it. The fold line was there, so I'm just going to want to tuck it right inside. All right. There we go. I'm not doing anything fancy here, really. I just want to tack it on so that it stays. I'm doing it in white thread so that it doesn't, you know, visually it's not really there. And I am doing it with still embroidery thread because that's what I'm doing on the whole project. I could use my machine and just set this in, but I'm just going to go through and connect it where there are bigger pieces of lace here so that it'll stay. Doesn't have to be even all the way around. Just tacking it on. All right, well, I've gone quiet, but I'm just enjoying pulling the thread through and seeing this little label attached. I think that will do the trick. All right, just tie that off on the back. Can't really even see any of the stitches because they're white on white. And they're little. There we go. Cut that off. Okay, now our piece is finished. Okay, so next step is going to be a couple things. One is to stitch it together, and I'm going to use my machine for that very quick stitch. And then I'm going to make a little sachet to put some lavender in. And I'm going to do this with the machine too. It's not even going to show at all. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to fill the little bag. So here's the bag. And just gonna get those little corners going. Isn't it pretty? Now, as I said, I don't think I don't know. I'll probably sew it closed just like I did for the other one. So she's not going to see it. I could take the lace off, but, you know, it'll be a little surprise for somebody to find later that there's a little bag with lace in it. I think that's fun. Why not have a surprise? All right, so to fill this, I'm just using the lid of my applique pins, and I'm just going to bring this in here. So if any spills, it doesn't go everywhere. As I said, I bought this lavender in bulk from a lady I know in town who orders it even more bulk, and then she sold me some of what she had ordered, which I really appreciated because I did not need that much lavender, but having some loose lavender was great for this project. I'm going to make a few others while I'm at it. But the lavender, it's nice. It's not overpowering, but it smells so good. Okay. All right. I'm just going to close this off with my machine, which is right behind me. Let's see. I guess I could tilt it. Yeah, you can see there. I love having everything in one place. So I'm just, my sewing table here is just, it's just a big, like folding table. I brought it in and I set it up in the corner of my room, and I love it because I've got plenty of room. Now I'm just moved over here. Soon I will be taking over with my crafting empire. Okay, so the other thing that I learned with the other one is that it's not a bad idea to stuff it a little bit so that it's a little bit more even. Now I can lay this way. I can fold it over, which I think is what I'm going to do because I do want it to fit within the little pillow. I think the last one I actually ended up making it smaller, but I'm going to leave it like that. Okay, so I'm going to fold the right sides together. Again, just going to do a quick stitch on my machine, and I'm going to, let's see, because of my Suffolk puffs, I'm just going to do this part by hand. I think it would just complicate it to do it with the sewing machine here. So I'm going to put my little pillow in here full of lavender. Let's see which way it wants to go. I'm going to fold it up against one of the sides, and then I'm just going to use a little bit of polyfill, fill in the other side. Okay, so I have stuffed this with some polyfill, and now I'm going to stitch it up. This again will be pretty much invisible. I'm so happy to get this done because I need to mail it. I am getting increasingly close to my deadline. All right, we'll just hide my little thread. Where shall I hide it? I might be a little overly stuffed. It's so hard to know because it does squish down a lot here, but okay. Want my seams together. Well, this side doesn't have a seam, but fold so that my initials are tucked in the corner and not in any way getting in the way. Okay, so I'm gonna start right there where I've got some traction. I can get something to hold on to with the base of the lace there. And then I think I'm just gonna do a simple running stitch across. And again, I could run this through on the machine, but with all the embellishments and because it's already full of stuffing, I'm just gonna do it this way. I don't want it to gather because I want it to have this shape. I could go over that, but I'm actually going to just head under. I don't really want my stitches across my design. But I'll just put in a little one there. You know, and then of course I can just go to the back and see where I am. There's one. So yeah, it's easier to sew from this direction. There's a little stray thread in there. I'm really happy with how these are turning out. I think they're really cute. And I mean, again, the main thing is it's this sentimental piece with our childhood fabrics. And it's not something that, you know, they need to display or that's a large piece. It's just a little something for them. And I think that they will both enjoy it. I come from a family of sentimental people. Well, some of us are, but I would say my sisters are to some degree. I might be the most sentimental, I'm not sure. Maybe my youngest sister is. I don't know. It's a toss-up. Although, I don't know. My middle sister's pretty sentimental too. So I guess it goes all around the family. I think that they'll enjoy having a little piece of our childhood in something that they can enjoy and that smells good and is simple and doesn't take up a lot of space. Oop, I think I got stuck on my Suffolk puff. I did. There we go. Round and round. All right. There we go. I mean, if it puckers a little bit, I'm not worried about that. I just don't want it gathered where I lose the shape of it. I'm just kind of tucking in that polyfill as I go, making sure it's not sticking out. I could always cut it off if I needed to, but obviously easier to just stuff it in as I go. And then I think I'm actually moving down here to the fabric to get some of this. I could have done that on the whole thing, but I found on the other one that doing it at the base of the lace seemed to work well. And that's it. I'm just going to run my needle back in and make my knot where it's less visible. There we go. All right. A fun little sachet. I love it. That is so cute. I think my sisters are really going to love it too. Their initials. They're each a little different. One has some decorative stitching around it. One has a little roses. This one has a larger label. This one is smaller, but I love how they turned out. And then a couple of little flowers on the front. I need to add the button to this one. That button will work well. Let's see. Obviously it's already made because I had made this one before I realized I wanted some kind of something going in the middle of my flower. But, you know, that's no problem. We can just add it now. So obviously adding a button after the fact makes it a little harder, but it should be okay. I'm going to trim off the tail of my thread so that it's not too much to deal with. And then I know the holes in this button are pretty big, so it's not really going to matter. And I am using all the strands of floss. You could do fewer for sure, but I just want it to hold well. So I'm going to give it, and I did it on the other one. I kind of liked how that looked. Okay, so stitching on something that's already full of, of everything. I'm just going to run my little needle and thread under the button and secure the end. And then run it up through one of the holes. I'm only showing you this in case you're brand new like I was when I started with these videos. And then the main thing is just you don't want to run your needle into the pillow. Like if you're stitching on a pillow that is already full, then you just kind of want to do stuff on the surface. So I ran that, and then I'm going to take just a little nibble of the fabric behind the other hole. There you go. And it'll be hidden behind the button. We have a nice big button to work with, so no problem. And then I can again come back through and just get a little bit of the fabric. I'm just securing it on there. And again, this is not like a coat button that's going to get a lot of action. This is just on a little sachet. It just needs to hold it on there. Okay, and then once I come through there, I'm just going to secure my thread by making a little knot underneath. And again, other people have other ways to do this, but this is how I always do it. When I run it that way, it seems to make a good knot and it doesn't take up too much space behind, so it's not going to stick out really funny. That should be secure, and then just clip her off. And I'm going to hide the tail under the button. Boop. There we go. How cute is that? And then they'll see the initials there, button there, cute little flower that brings back memories of when we all had our rooms together. I kind of love them. So that is my little sachet present for my sisters. Time to pop them in the mail, and I will see you soon.